that song, it's my recovery song. It is my go-to anytime I forget whose I am. And so, I don't know, to be sitting here and worshiping and having that song with my friends, y'all are my friends, like for so long. I walked alone. Whether I chose that or that was my end result, I ended up alone. I was so lonely. And before I get into sharing a little bit about myself, I just want to share this one thing. I met a person at the very beginning of my journey that I'm going to talk about. I wish I knew who he was. He's an angel to me. I wish I knew who he was, because I would find him and I would give him the biggest hug and tell him thank you, because what his one sentence stuck with me till this very day. He said, "You never have to be alone again." That's all he said to me, and it has stuck with me, and it's true. So here I am with a new group of friends, whether y'all want me or not. I read you a book, so you know it. You, anytime you're missing me, you just open it up and read it, and there I am, and I'll be thinking about y'all too, because this is my lifeline, is the unity in my recovery. So thank you for my introduction. My name is Melissa Gissy Witherspoon. I am a recovering drug addict and alcoholic. And my sobriety date is November 21st, 2013. So in November, I'm coming up on 9 years.
Praise God.
And it has been a long journey. It feels like a couple of decades, but it's not. I haven't quite made it to one. But it's been a process. And I was talking to Pastor before we were sitting down having some dinner together. And I was saying I'm at the very beginning of this book process where I've shared, essentially, I wrote my testimony. And I'm not a person that ever thought to be standing in front of a group of people and speaking. It's not who I was. It's certainly who I'm becoming, and it's uncomfortable. Growth is uncomfortable. So it's a journey. And every day that I do, we talked about this, every day that I just try and do the next right thing, it just seems to flow. And you have to put in the work and just do one day at a time what you can do. So today, I'm here with my friends, and I'm going to share a little bit about myself. So, and I don't want to give away too much, and I want y'all to read the book. So I'm going to tell you some stuff. Or I might, refer to it a little bit. But so, essentially, my story begins. I had a pretty good childhood, right? I came from a middle-class family. We lived in a nice area. And I had a great life. I had a mom and dad, had an older sister, younger brother, lots of family. I'm Italian. We had, big family celebrations. Alcohol was around me a lot in the majority of my life. It was even, at church functions, it was everywhere. And so it was a normal thing, even at a very young age, to have alcohol around. And nobody, I think from my generation, I don't know if it was from my generation or if because there were addicts and alcoholics in my family, I'm not sure, but that addiction was not ever discussed. That wasn't a conversation. So I didn't have a lot of knowledge about addiction or what it looked like until I was well into my own addiction. But I do know that addiction offers a lifestyle when it's first, addiction is a cancer of your soul. That's the best way for me to describe it to you guys. If you're not an addict or an alcoholic, I can give you a good insight of what it looks like in my book, but the best way to put it is a cancer to your soul. So it starts off as a little nodule, and it can increase to like a tumor, and you have to have something to fight that off. For me, that's my higher power. That's God. I was lacking that. I didn't have the remedy, so the tumor just grew and grew and grew, and it grew for decades. So I started... I guess I was about 17 or 18. I started following a crowd of people that offered me a lifestyle that looked easier than the doing the next right thing that we just talked about. And it was, I was a cute young thing, and I was in this group of guys, and they were cool, they were older than me. They could drive, and they knew how to build muscle cars. So I learned about engines and how to rebuild engines, just stuff. And I found my niche with them. I was always a little awkward. I never really fit in anywhere. I would try, and the harder I would try, the worse it would be. It's a big snowball effect. So these guys, they accepted me and they liked me, right? They didn't expect anything from me. It wasn't a gross thing that these guys were going to take advantage of this girl. This group of guys just treated me like I was their little sister. But as time went on, this is how the cancer grew, the addiction cancer. They started getting into drugs. There was alcohol around, and we might smoke pot, dabbled in some cocaine, maybe a little heavier stuff, but nothing major. We just partied. They did get involved with some drug dealers, and I carried right along with them. And at first it was very innocent, and I think I got swept away by the fun of it all, right? So these drug dealers, they had really nice cars. They had cool places to live, and we would vacation. We could go to South Florida. Like I've never been to West Palm Beach. I was 18. I thought that was cool. We go in these fancy cars. We go to. So I was along for the ride. We went and we did a lot of stuff. And in that, as things went about, I would get introduced to more and more things. So, eventually I found myself running with a fake ID. I would be at strip clubs. We're not going to get into some of the things that I got that happened, because that's beside the point, but you can imagine they offered it and I took advantage of it. And so I was in there, and there was like an air about me where I just didn't really know. I was kind of naive, but I was up for anything. So I was entertaining, and so I became an entertainment piece for them. And so at some point, my parents, they couldn't get through to me, and they were tired, and they just stopped fighting. And I ran away. And I didn't run far. I was not even maybe a half a mile from my house, but they had no idea where I was and who I was with, and I was fine with that. So I started living with one of the drug dealers, and the guys that had introduced me to them, they had kind of pulled away. They all started going in their own directions, and I didn't need them anymore because I was in with these guys who were going to introduce me to these guys who were going to introduce me to these guys. So I was well on my way, and I had manipulated my way through, and I thought that I had a game plan and I was in control, and I wasn't. I ended up being in a position where I couldn't leave, and my entertainment was used for the benefit of them to their customers. And fortunately, that did not last for very long, because there was a raid and a drug bust, and they came in, and I think there was wiretaps on the place, and so they understood that there was a minor girl, and at some point there was two of us maybe being held there. It was never said that you can't leave, but when you're in that kind of scenario, you can't leave. So they knew what was going on, and they came and they arrested people, and then I went back home, and people were so excited. My mom and dad were so excited because they had me back, and here was my fresh, clean start. But the fact of the matter is, once you've experienced and seen some of the things that I had seen, and had some of the things done to me that were done to me, you can't just go back to what I call a vanilla life and live happily ever after, right? I took some of the stuff deep down inside. The trauma was deep within me. And I became a master at looking a certain way and acting a certain way that did not match what was on the inside. So I carried on with that lifestyle of pretending like I was okay, and just what I thought was doing the next right thing for a while. And I would find myself in a redundant cycle of relationships, abusive relationships. Not all of them. I had, some normal ones, but they maybe were too normal because it didn't match what was on the inside of me. they were too nice, or, I could never get it right. So I would have children, I would get married, I would buy a home, I would get this great job, I would be I was very successful in multifamily housing, real estate, and then I would just bottom out. And everybody would look at me and say, what's her problem? She's crazy. Oh, here she goes again. And along the way, my cancer of addiction was brewing and growing and growing and getting larger. And so it stayed pretty much alcohol, I think, was my main drug of choice. I think it was most readily available, the most socially acceptable, and even for girls, it was cool for a long period of time that I could hang out with investors or with the guys watching football and drink just as much as them and carry on. I could carry on that way for a long time. Your tolerance changes along the way. So somewhere along the way, when I was popping Xanax like they were Tic Tacs, and I was downing vodka bottles and Lord knows doing what else, I would start to fall flat on my face. It just wasn't working for me anymore. So the gig was up, and I had accumulated several DUIs. I think within within my lifetime there were 6, but I think I had a 2-year rock bottom period. This is after 20 years of the in and out, failed relationships, ups and downs, addiction growing, leaving children here. I have a marriage here with children, and there's children over here, and I'm moving on and getting a fresh start. So I kind of, I go and do my thing, and I just leave everybody. I just make a mess, and I leave them. And then I go over, and then I make a mess, and I leave them. I had met my husband, my current husband. He's still around, so he's a saint. He recognized right away that I was at the end of my cycle with him, and I don't think that he was quite ready to let go. And he may be the first person that did that, that said, no, wait a minute, we can fix you. You're not broke. You're not broken. We can do these certain steps, or if that doesn't work, we can try this. And so we started doing that. It was unfamiliar territory with both of us, especially for him, because he rarely drinks. He doesn't smoke. I don't know, maybe he did drugs in college. I can't qualify what his behaviors were, but he's a pretty straight and narrow guy, right? And so we started maneuvering in and out, and as I would go into these inpatient treatment facilities or outpatient treatment facilities, it intensified. I tried to explain it to people, like, some people said, well, were you fighting yourself? You could see that you were making progress, and then you were fighting yourself, and you would pull back and relapse. I always felt like there was this outside force, like the harder I would try, or the more I would move towards maybe identifying that there was something greater than myself, which I now know is God. Something wanted me far from that. I can't describe it. I'm an author. I'll try in one of my books. I haven't gotten there yet, but I know there was something else, and maybe on the opposite side of God, that was battling. Was it my own free will? I don't know. But I would go and I would get close, and I could see light at the end of the tunnel, and I would pull back, and then I would bottom out. And the final bottom, that was 9 years ago, or almost 9 years ago, I was exhausted. I was so tired. I just didn't want to live anymore. I didn't want to hurt anybody anymore. I didn't want to. I didn't want to hurt. And I had started getting glimpses of sobriety, and I started getting glimpses of knowing that I'm not doing the right thing. And it was enough for me to see pain in people, or to see what my choices, what the circumstances of my choices were. And then I would pull back into addiction. And every time I did that, it was like I was getting a touch or a glimpse of the reality of what I was doing. For a while, I just sailed along, wreaking havoc without any cognition of what I was doing. Do you know what I mean? So once I started getting help, I could see. We would go to family counseling meetings, and I would hear these stories from my own children, or from my mom, or from my husband, or from my ex-husband. And so I became aware. And so I was getting these tastes of that I couldn't get it straight. So I would pull back into addiction, and I didn't want to do that anymore. and I didn't think, I just had lost my will to live. I didn't think that I could ever figure it out. And I was on my own through it. I had help and support, but nobody really understood what I was trying to work through. And so I decided to take my own life. And I planned it strategically. And I tell people this all the time because you have to be careful. A lot of people that you hear suicide attempt stories from, people will think, or they'll actually say, well, maybe you didn't want to die. Maybe you just were asking for help. That was not my intent at all. My intention was to leave this earth. And I planned it out in a way that I was certain that I could get away with it. And God had other plans. And he does that to me a lot. I really think I know what, I got the boxes checked and the spreadsheet, and I got it all mapped out, and this dishes is done, and I got my blanket laid out, my husband's going to be out of town, and I got my pills lined up. I even went as far as, I keep pointing, he's read my book, and I talk about this in one of my chapters in depth, but I even lit a I was a chain smoker. And I lit a candle because I knew I was going to be on my way out, but I didn't want to miss smoking cigarettes on my way to hell. So I had a candle lit beside me so I could, you know what I mean? Because when you're really high or drunk, you can't operate a cigarette lighter. And I did not want to fail at that. So I even had that. So it was planned. And my husband forgot something, and he came home. And again, he's not a smoker, and I did not smoke in our home. I usually would go out in the backyard, but I didn't care because I was going to die, and he was gone. So I was smoking in the basement, and he found me. And prior to him finding me, I had what I believe is a divine intervention. And I saw something, and I say, when I tell this story, I was highly intoxicated. So I know you're sitting there thinking, well, I'm sure you saw something, because I had handfuls of pills, and I was chasing it with vodka, and I was on my way out smoking my cigarettes, but I saw something. I'm certain of what I saw. And I heard a voice. And the voice that I heard was not like you and I having a conversation. I was a voice that I could feel within, and I would look at the face to try and make out, what is it saying? And the mouth didn't move, but the figure said that you essentially, if you will, submit yourself, your will to God, you have a purpose that all will be well. You have to take care of yourself first. You have to submit in this moment, and I'll get you to the next step, and then you'll see as time goes and you put in the work, you'll see what the plan is. It'll be revealed to you. So my husband took me to get help, and that attempt. We actually dug a little deeper in our pockets and then our whole family plan and time. We didn't do a Band-Aid on it. We did some serious treatment, and I went to a dual diagnosis treatment facility, and they were able to get me to through different kind of treatment options. They have dialectical behavior therapy. There was all these things that were helped me get in touch with the trauma that I started off talking to you guys about. And so I could start working on that. And then, maybe proper medications to help me come off the drugs and alcohol and get me stabilized. So it was a long-term plan. So I was gone for a long time. And then as soon as I came home, I had outpatient therapy lined up. I'm not really sure, the funding, how it lined up the way it did, but it just did. And so I had ongoing treatment that was never offered before. And then as soon as that ran out, literally the day that the insurance company called and said, whatever copays you've been covering on top of these donations that have been made, you're at a dead end with this. So you're on your own. Insurance companies like to tell you that. As soon as they don't have any more, they'll send you on your own. So the DUI court program called me. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and they have a DUI court program. It's like a drug court program for habitual violators. And they said that they have a way to continue counseling. You have to, it's rigorous work. You could be in and out of jail, which I was, because I don't behave all the time, and so I didn't follow the rules. So I made the program harder than it had to be, but I did it, and I graduated. And I actually just recently, a week ago, spoke at their graduation ceremony. So kind of like, it's beautiful. You know, it's beautiful to stand up in front of 500 participants and say, I literally said, I'm standing up here talking to you, but I belong in that seat that y'all are sitting in, because that is who I am, you know, and I'm with you, I get you. So that was cool, but it ended up being, my sharing that with you is that every step that I took, as long as I would try and push my ego or will to the side, and it's hard, I still struggle with it a decade later, and would just try and do the next right thing and stay in the moment, stay in the day, and not overwhelm myself with what the future would hold. It just seemed to work out. You know, I work at a church, and I write about this in my book as well. There was a time where relapse, that's where you would, if you're addicted to something, and then you go back to using again. There's different levels of relapse, I believe, and you could have physical relapse, you can have emotional relapse. Physical relapse is when you're using again. I was on my way to relapse, and I had moved from Atlanta up here to North Carolina, and my husband he still hated me. He saved my life, but there was some resentment when I came home from treatment. You know what I mean? It wasn't I came home from treatment and we lived happily ever after. I came home to a big mess that I had made, and my kids didn't talk to me. I was far away from my home. I didn't have my silver network. My husband was mad at me. So I got in the car and I was going to leave, because that's what I do. I'm a runner. You know, there's something about fight, flight, or some, I don't even know them, because I'm flight. I'm out of there. You forget about it. I hear a gunshot, I'm gone. I'm out of there. This is my go-to. So I was in the car and I was flying, and I was going to find the first liquor store, and I was just going to drink it away, because that, even after years of sobriety at that point, that is the addictive brain. It doesn't go away. It's always there. And if you're not working your program and you're not doing the next right thing, it'll catch you off guard. The devil loves that. That's his end, right? Or he thinks. So God had different plans. So I just moved to North Carolina. As a matter of fact, I was in Clemens. And I was like, what's this Clemens? I think I had moved to Pottstown. And I was in Clemens, and I was trying to find Highway 40, and I couldn't. I was driving around, and I couldn't find a liquor store. I probably actually had circled 2 or 3 and didn't realize it, but I just pulled the car over, and I just broke down, and I said, God, show me a sign of what to do, because I'm about to start walking backwards here. I know it. I can't help it. I can't control myself. I'm overwhelmed. Show me what to do. And I looked up, and I saw a sign, and it said Holy Family Catholic Church, and that is the name of the church that I grew up in Marietta, Georgia.
Wow.
So I'm 400 miles away from where I grew up at. I have no idea where I'm at. I'm looking for a liquor store, and I pull over to get myself together, and I'm praying to God, show me a sign, and he literally showed me a sign that said, you're home. That's where you are. You're home. So I walked in. You know, I got it. I called them and said, I need some help. I have some community service. I'm overwhelmed, and it went from there. And I walked in the doors, and I haven't walked back out. That's where I am now. It's my home. They made me a position for me. They made me some, here, give her this to do. She'll figure it out. And I do that real good. And they're like, okay, well, maybe she wants to do. And then I'd ask for more hours. And then they'd say my community service hours were over and completed, because I was on probation for a while. And I beg, can I stay? I'll do it for free. I just want my little cubicle here. I feel safe. I feel good. God brought me here. I would remind them, God brought me here. So y'all better keep me here. And they let me stay. And so that's where I'm at. And at that church, there's a priest, and his name is Peter, Father Peter. And he's from Cameroon, Africa. And I always smile when I think about him. He's so cool. He is so jolly. Like, that man has seen a lot. When you go from Cameroon, Africa, like where they go in with machetes and like, I mean, I can't even get into it. He needs his own book. It don't matter. He's so grateful. He is so grateful all the time. He found me. He first came to Holy Family the same time that I did. And so he would see me hiding in the back of my little cubicle because I don't like to get in front of people. I like to just do my thing and belong, but not really belong. I don't want to have to fully commit, right? So he would come by every day after Mass. He said Mass, and he would check on me. And he would say, tell me a little bit about yourself. And when I started to trust him or feel comfortable around him, I started sharing my story. And he was floored because I don't look like somebody who like lived in the back of a car and like, you know, snorted coke off of strippers at a strip bar, or I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I don't look like that. That was my jam then. It's not now, so it didn't add up. So he was intrigued, and I would tell him more and more. And he just looked at me one day and he said, I believe God's calling you to write a book. And I thought that was so funny because I was a high school dropout. Like, I can't spell. I think it's funny that they hired me as an administrative assistant. My boss, Vicky, she's in the book too, is a saint because she's constantly, Melissa, where did you file so-and-so? And I would say, oh, and she's like, that letter's not even in that file. And I'm like, okay, sorry. But she lets me stay because she loves me, and she just knows she's never going to find a file if she needs to. It's just not my thing either. I guess they like me because I don't know. I'll have to look at my employee evaluation again, figure out why they let me stay there. But writing a book, absolutely not. Like, I don't read books. I don't. And because when you're an addict for so long, I read this one. This is the one.
Was it good?
It was a good one. It was a good one. When you're in addiction for so long, that's like the last time, you don't have time to sit down and read a book. You know, you're getting drunk and partying and running from stuff. You're not trying to learn about yourself or somebody else. And so it just wasn't my thing. And I fought it, and I ignored him, and he had this Cameroonian laugh, ha ha, and then I would ha ha, and we would laugh, and he'd walk off, and then he'd come back, and he'd be like, no, I'm serious. God wants you to know that you have a message to share. You should write a book. And then as he started getting me groomed for that, I would run into people. This is all like within a 6-8 month period. They would say, you should write a book. And then I would be at the grocery store and I would say, the weather's nice today. And the lady would turn and go, you should write a book. You know, and I'm like, the narrative was all around me. You know, God likes to talk to us through other people. I don't know if you've ever experienced that. He seems to know I listen to that means of communication. So eventually, and I write about that too in my introduction, after this person, and even my husband who hated me at the time, or acted like he hated me at the time, he said, you should do it. That's what all this hard work is for. So you can get sober and go help somebody else get sober. I think you can do it. You could tell any story. You could tell your story. You're qualified for that. So I did. And the interesting part of when God sets a plan in motion and you get out of his way and you start to follow it, and I would get it. I mean, I want to come clean. I would get in his way and get out of his way and get back in his way. It's not like I went, okay, I'll write a book, and then I wrote a book. It has been a dance of faith, and it's beautiful that it's that way because my growth through the writing process has drawn me closer to him, and he's patient and full of grace with my timidness about it. That's the loving Father that I believe in, that He is so calm and patient and full of mercy and grace that he allows us to draw closer to him at our own different times. You love God and you love God and you love God and maybe you don't believe in God. Maybe you're ready to believe, but you're not sure. We're all at a different pain. He's calling us all and drawing us all in, right? But all in different timelines at different times. And he's patient about that. Yes. So he was very patient. He still is. And the book came to fruition. And essentially that's where I'm at in my journey. Now I am being called to go and speak and meet new friends. You know? Yeah. And get together and share wisdom and grow together. And it's a very new journey for me. The book was only published. It went online. It's a soft launch. So it was available on Amazon and Lighthouse Christian Publishing. It got picked up by a publisher. That's amazing in itself. Like, how did God make a high school dropout who's never read a book write a book? And the pandemic was a boom of authors because everybody had time. They were at home writing books, and everybody was in like this, especially in my genre, inspirational self-help. Everybody wanted to help somebody in some way because we're in this pandemic and Bell's time. I mean, right now, nobody cares about anybody ever again. Now's the time to launch a book. I should have my second one launched right now. But it didn't matter. I put it out there and I got like 100 and, I can't remember, 100 and something, a lot of no's. And one publisher said yes. He said, I dig it. Like this needs to be out there. It's not just my story. It's not just a memoir. It has important information about relapse, or my interpretation of how relapse looks, and how I use the view of relapse in different phases to kind of catch myself. And I think that's been a huge contributor to my length of sobriety, because when I stopped washing my hair and I stopped going to meetings and I stopped eating properly and I stopped doing stuff, I know that I'm on the way down. You know, I've learned how to catch myself before I get to that physical relapse. And then it has a chapter about breaking the stigma, which is it's informative for people to understand what addiction really is, because there's a lot of people that don't know, or what they do know is what they've been told. So it gives an addict's perspective. Again, I'm not a counselor. I don't have the education and the degrees like some of us in this room have. You know, they're all, I don't. My qualification is life experience, and I just want to share that with people. And God is clearly allowing it to happen. And as long as he does, I'm grateful to show up and do the next right thing one day at a time. So I just want to tell y'all thank you. I feel so connected to all of y'all right now. It's such a blessing. If I knew 9 years ago that I'd be standing in this room having this intimate moment with you guys, I would have gotten sober like that. Would have been no question. Because this is what's beautiful about this new way of life for me, is the unity. So thank you. Am I too short?